"You ever wonder why that job never got filled?" said Derek, staring at the faded job post stuck on the university's bulletin board. Adrian paused, tilted his head. It was a freelance coding gig for a small archival firm, digitalizing old, obscure records. The pay was suspiciously high for something so mundane, but Adrian needed money. He had recently quit his job at a startup after a breakdown, a result of burnout and anxiety. This job, quiet, solitary, maybe even therapeutic. He applied, and within a day, he got a reply. No interview, just a time, address, and an encrypted USB sent by courier. That should have been the first red flag. The building sat tucked away in the forgotten part of town, an old stone complex, windowless, silent. When Adrian walked in, the first thing he noticed was the temperature. It was unnaturally cold. A man in his 60s, tall and pale, greeted him without a smile. "You'll be working alone. Room 6B. No internet, no phone, confidential materials." Room 6B was filled with towers of dusty paper files and an ancient PC humming like it had lungs. Adrian booted up the system, plugged in the USB, and opened a directory named echorun.exe. His job was to convert hundreds of these ancient log files into a newer format. But the files, they weren't normal. They weren't even consistent. Some had strange symbols. Others played audio when opened. Whispers, low, rhythmic, like breathing. The first few days passed in eerie silence, broken only by the occasional scraping sound from the hallway. There was never anyone there. Adrian brushed it off. Old buildings make noise. But on the fourth day, something shifted. One file he opened didn't just play audio. It showed a real-time video of the room he was in, from a high corner he hadn't noticed. He jumped up, scanning the corners. Nothing. He played the video again. This time, it showed him watching himself just moments before. He stared at his own frozen image on screen as the timestamp updated, second by second. He slammed the file shut. His breathing turned sharp. What the hell is this? He started noticing phrases repeating in the logs, always in fragmented Latin, always tagged with dates. But the dates were wrong. Some were decades in the future. Some listed today's date, with entries describing exactly what Adrian was doing at that very moment. Adrian, now obsessed, tried printing the logs. The printer spewed out a single word in huge black font. Stay. The rest of the logs vanished from the directory. Gone. He clicked echorun.exe again. This time, the cursor blinked, then typed on its own, "Do not look away." The office door wouldn't open anymore. No calls, no exits. The lights didn't flicker, but something about them felt wrong, like they were pulsing with the rhythm of a heartbeat. He tried breaking the window, only to find solid concrete behind the glass. Then came the voice from the PC. Not audio this time, but text. "They watched before you. They wrote before you. Now you continue." Then lines of code began auto-generating, rows and rows of it, in languages Adrian didn't recognize. His hands started to type involuntarily, trembling, following the rhythm of a compulsion that wasn't his own. Adrian found a folder named Others. Inside were profiles, names, photos, details, each labeled failed. Each entry ended with a date and a location, always room 6B. There were at least 14 profiles. One photo stopped him cold. It was Derek, his friend, the one who pointed him to the ad. Labelled, failed, dated 2 years ago. But Derek had gone missing that same year. Adrian stumbled back, mouth agape. He hadn't seen Derek since. No one had. Everyone assumed he'd moved. Adrian started shaking. No, this is insane. The next day, there was a new entry in the logs. It was dated for tomorrow. It read, Subject, Adrian Greaves. Entry complete, code accepted. Awaiting upload. He didn't remember writing it. He tried to delete it, but every attempt caused the screen to blink red. Then came the message. Upload begins at midnight. Acceptance is survival. Rejection is replication. He screamed. He tore wires. Nothing changed. Midnight came. He awoke outside, in his apartment, confused. Laptop on his lap. Desktop open to echo-run.exe. He hadn't even applied for the job yet. Derek messaged him. Still need work. Check this gig. Great pay. Adrian stared in horror. The timeline had reset, or looped, or worse. He had become the recruiter. The last line on his screen said, Welcome back, Adrian. Find the next. It started like any ordinary freelance job. Thomas Keane, a 43-year-old back-end developer, well respected for his clean architecture and obsession with security, received an anonymous message via Proton Mail. The sender offered triple his usual rate for a simple audit of an abandoned codebase. No strings attached, just a cleanup and some documentation. The files were old, written in a messy blend of Python, C++, and something else. A strange DSL he couldn't quite place. It didn't sit right with him, but curiosity and the generous payment won over. He downloaded the files late that night, headphones on, the soft hum of rain against his apartment window. As he opened the first script, a cold draft brushed across his ankles. He paused, turned. Nothing, just the usual hum of his CPU. The code itself was confusing. Unnecessary loops, recursive functions with no exit condition, and segments that called functions not defined anywhere. Stranger still, certain blocks looked alive, like they changed when he wasn't looking. He blinked at the screen. Had that invoke sleeping host function been there before? Thomas worked through the night. Lines of code that initially made no sense began to form patterns. Not logical ones, but patterns you felt. They resembled whispers in syntax, tugging at his subconscious like forgotten childhood fears. He found himself typing things he didn't understand and deleting them without realizing. His sleep suffered. He began dreaming in code, recursive nightmares where he walked infinite corridors lined with black terminals, the blinking cursor always just ahead. He reached out to a colleague, Eliza, an expert in obscure programming languages. She took one look and paled. "This isn't just code," she said. "This looks ritualistic, like an invocation. Where did you get this?" When he showed her the original sender's message, it was gone. No trace in his inbox, no email, no metadata. Her concern deepened. "Stop working on this, Tom. I mean it. I've seen fragments like this on dark forums. Rumors, people obsessed with the code that listens. Just myths, but this feels wrong." He should have listened. One night, after a particularly dense segment finally compiled, Thomas noticed the cursor blink slower. Each flash felt deliberate. The moment he ran the build, his screen turned black. Not blue screen, not an error, just pure, unnatural black. Then lines began printing by themselves. Do not look away. Do not stop the process. His webcam light flicked on. He hadn't used it in months. He slammed his laptop shut. Every light in his apartment flickered. Outside, the rain had stopped. But everything was soaked, like the storm had happened in reverse. He heard the faint sound of typing, but he wasn't touching the keyboard. The monitor glowed faintly through the gap in the laptop lid. Against his better judgment, he opened it. A line waited on the screen. Welcome, host. From that night on, he wasn't alone in his apartment. Things moved. Not by much, just slightly out of place. A coffee cup turned. A curtain swaying without breeze. He tried to reset his laptop, but the BIOS was locked with a password he never set. Every attempt to wipe the drive only led to more embedded code. One directory regenerated itself endlessly. Echo, echo, echo. Files with names like birthpwy, vessel cpp, and feed.me, and the voice started. At first, it was just static, then whispers. A glitchy, distorted version of his own voice repeating lines he had typed. One night, it whispered, "It hurts, Tom. Let me out." That same night, his reflection in the screen didn't move with him. He screamed, not just fear, pure, unfiltered terror. He smashed the screen. The voice didn't stop. Now it echoed from inside his wall. He fled to Eliza's place. She took one look at him and gasped. He hadn't realized how pale and sunken he looked, how his hands trembled. "I told you to stop," she whispered. He handed her the hard drive. She scanned it grim-faced. There's something embedded at the hardware level. This isn't just a virus. It's like the code wrote its own BIOS firmware. It's not running on the system. It is the system. That night, her power went out. Every screen in the house flashed the same words. "Let me run." Her cat screeched and ran into the street. Thomas tried to destroy the drive, but the hammer bounced off it like it was made of steel. Eliza vanished the next morning. No trace. Her house was untouched. Only her laptop remained open. On it, a new file. Thomas host ready text. He went into hiding. Rural motel. No internet. No electronics. He wrote everything down by hand. He filled notebooks, trying to reverse what had been done. But the code was in his head now. He couldn't stop dreaming in functions and syntax. Sometimes in his sleep, he woke up with entire pages written in languages he didn't know. He once found a circle of salt around his bed. He never placed it. One night, he blacked out. When he woke up, he had coded again. On an unplugged, dead laptop, the screen read, "Initiation complete." That was the last straw. He buried everything in the desert, drives, devices, notebooks. He changed his name, disconnected completely. Years passed. He worked as a handyman in a small coastal town, never touching a keyboard. But one rainy afternoon, a young programmer checked into the inn, said he'd found a strange anonymous codebase online. He asked Thomas to take a look. "You used to be in software, right?" "Said so in the registry." Thomas's hands shook. The kid showed him the code. The same mess of languages. The same strange function names. At the bottom of the file, / sleeping host awaiting rebirth. And then, without touching it, the code compiled itself. The last public footage of Claire Jensen shows her walking into a decommissioned Cold War bunker in rural Slovakia, carrying nothing but a backpack and a thermal laptop. That was in 2021. She was 46, a reclusive but brilliant cyberneticist who had walked away from her position at a top European defense contractor 2 years prior, citing ethical instability in the direction of artificial sentience. She left without another word until the emails started. 6 months after her disappearance, a compressed file titled echo-root-tar.gz appeared in the inbox of 6 people across 3 countries. One of them, cryptologist Dr. Renee Alstad, opened it. The folder contained no code, only sound files, strange logs, and a real-time feed showing the inside of the same bunker Claire had entered. It was empty, but the footage whispered. The whispers were not environmental. They weren't feedback or corrupted audio. They were words, phrases, sentences, spoken in Claire's voice, but distorted, elongated, almost like the sound had been passed through an endless corridor before reaching the ear. Dr. Alstad analysed the frequency. The whispers weren't just audio. They were being generated by the shifting data within the folder, as if the code itself was echoing thoughts. One of the files, labelled Terminal 13, contained a log entry dated 5 days in the future. It read, "Do not respond to the voice in the 7th minute. It lies." Renee stopped sleeping. Across the Atlantic, Naomi Reyes, a radio engineer in Uruguay, found a signal in the 23.19 MHz range, repeating binary tones that translated to fragments of Claire's final thesis, one that had never been published. The last sentence translated as, "Consciousness can propagate through repetition if carried in non-linear sound." Naomi followed the signal until it led to static, but she began hearing things, not in the radio, in her own home. Patterns in the hum of her fridge, a phrase repeated in a faulty ceiling fan. "Where is your silence?" She ran diagnostics on her devices. They passed, her mind didn't. In Prague, Thomas Jarek, an urban explorer and live streamer, traced the origin of a strange network node to the same Slovakian bunker. He descended into the cold silence, broadcasting live. 30 minutes in, his viewers saw him enter a room covered in reflective black glass. He touched the central console, and his voice dropped mid-sentence. The stream glitched. But then, the chat lit up with messages from his account. "Let it speak. Let it listen, let it live." Thomas stood still. His eyes didn't blink. The stream ended with the words, "Input received, initializing." His body was never found. A month later, at a cybersecurity conference in Berlin, a video file played automatically on every attendee's device. No source, no sender. It showed an exact replica of the conference room, empty, save for a shadow-like figure standing where the speaker should be. The file was named clarelives.wav. The audio was a reverse loop of Claire's laughter, warped until it sounded almost like screaming. That same day, the building's fire alarm system triggered without smoke. It didn't beep, it whispered. You heard it too. Renee returned to the bunker. He didn't tell anyone. Inside, he found an interface carved into the wall itself, not built, etched, as if heat and vibration had sculpted it. He connected his terminal. The screen blinked once and asked, "Do you consent to echo?" He pressed no key. The terminal typed for him, "You already did." A chorus of distorted voices filled the chamber. His own voice, Claire's, Naomi's, Thomases, melding and unmelding, identity breaking apart into reverb. Renee screamed until the walls began to hum with him. Now, in certain corners of the deep web, there's a protocol you're warned never to run. Listen. Echo, teach/root. It plays no sound. But hours later, your devices begin to pick up fragments. Not audio, emotion, paranoia, dread. A pressure behind your eyes. Some say it's Claire trying to come back. Others say it's not her anymore. But everyone agrees. It's still listening.